Well, it's great to be with you today, Ryan. I know a little bit about you from prior conversations. You're the CEO of PeopleShare Works, and I want you to share all about that. You have had quite a journey that you've created and masterminded in many ways. And I'd love to hear about where you started, how you got to where you are. Basically, what's your story?
Sure, sure. I think it's probably pretty traditional for somebody that started their own company. Somebody that started a pizza company, pizza parlor, probably honed their craft from working at, Domino's or Pizza Slot and just said, hey, I can make a better pizza on my own. So I worked for, at the time, I think it was the third largest staffing company in the world, Randstad, which is, I think, a Swiss-based company. And I realized I was a very good corporate employee until I wasn't. And then I kind of went off.
What you mean? Yes.
Yeah, kind of went off the cliff, and sometimes, I learned what the word sclerotic meant, and I wasn't familiar with that word, but that was a sclerotic organization, meaning just everything was, decision by committee. Where should we have lunch today? And you'd set up 3 conference calls to determine what cuisine we're having, and it's just. And that doesn't, that's probably a bad anecdote, what you're having for lunch. But when it comes to promoting somebody or hiring somebody or the people, when you're leading people,
yes,
and you've got bureaucracy, you got yourself a real problem.
Yes.
And people that are drivers and have a sense of urgency don't like that bureaucracy or a sclerotic organization. So I just said, yeah, I can make a better burger or a better pizza on my own, and so I started with a partner, and we had to be 20 miles outside of where we were in downtown Philadelphia, and we went to King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. That's the actual name of a town, and that was okay. Good, yeah, it's a shopping mecca. Deb, you look like you might shop somewhere at a high-end boutique place. Or your decorations, I can tell you're little high end, but King of Prussia was technically 18 miles away, so close enough. We actually talked to the attorneys at the company and told them what we were planning on doing and starting a competitor, but we weren't going to compete with. We were going to compete with them,
yes,
but we were going to honor our non-compete by not taking any employees or any customers. And it's kind of a different market out in King of Prussia, and then just grew it from there.
And you make it sound so simple. I'm sure it is by no means very simple at all. I mean, what was it like in the early days versus the middle days versus the investment days versus the next days and the next days? Give us some pivot points.
Yeah. So you make a really good point. It was so difficult. It's like navigating somewhere that you've never been, and you're kind of building the car as you're driving. And I'll tell you, it was difficult, and we were making no money. I'm not ashamed to say that I paid myself a base salary of $35,000 the first year. I was actually able to live off of that in 2005. But now looking back, it was so difficult. We're, not making any money,
yes,
and not sure that we were going in the right direction. But now I look back on it, 2005, 19 years ago. And now I look at it as, man, that was the most fun road trip you ever had.
Yeah.
Because now, we're more successful in terms of size, and we've got our financial house in order. But there's a lot more layers and a lot more meeting with attorneys and accountants and that sort of thing. So it's good to where we are, and I'm proud to kind of look and I guess occasionally smell the roses, but there's a lot of discussions and talks with attorneys, and we're much more corporate now.
So that's interesting that you say that because, whereas you started out back at the large firm having a meeting,
I know.
about a plan about another plan and then have a meeting about it and so on and so forth. Something tells me that is not how you're running the business though.
Right. Yeah. I would say that we get bogged down with a lot of those type of things, but we're still leading people. I don't want to say entirely by gut feel, but I'm going to say that that's 70% is gut feel.
Oh,
Hey, she's doing a terrific job. She's been with us how long? 3.5 years. Great. Make that promotion.
yes. Yeah.
So we're still able to do that
Yes.
internally. But, when you get a little bit bigger, you're dealing with a lot of unemployment, lawsuits, wrongful term. We're in the business of hiring and firing people. That's our entire business. So naturally with that, you're going to get some EEOC complaints. You're going to get,
Yes.
sexual harassment or an employment discrimination.
Mhm.
We'll process by the end of the year for calendar year 2024, we'll process over 125,000 W-2s.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean we have 125,000 temporary employees, but even if you worked one day, you get a W-2. So we'll onboard and offboard 125,000 people this year.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So 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 you have a company that has a culture. Actually, let me back up a little bit. I mean, we're going to have information about your company and your bio that people can read separately. But while we're here, talk a little bit about your company, what you do, who you serve, how you serve them. So if folks want to, need help, they know where to go. But just so we understand the context of our discussion today in terms of your company.
Sure. So we are a classic staffing company. We don't like the term temp agency, but it's kind of descriptive. Everybody knows a temp agency, but it's not in the 1970s where somebody's out from, maternity leave or a week's vacation.
Right.
90% of our revenue is derived from that temp to hire. And the
Oh,
best way to
okay.
hire non-exempt staff,
Yeah.
non-exempt is just a fancy way of saying hourly employees, clerical, administrative, more entry level. The best way to hire them in our contention is hire them temp to hire.
Yes.
Try them out for that 4-month period. I
Yes.
mean, everybody knows, boy, that guy or gal looked stellar in my 45-minute interview. But
Right.
how is he or she going to perform on the job? And how is he or she going to get along with that entire team of 12 people? You don't know that, and you can't determine that during the interview. But that temp to hire model or temp to perm model is the best way in our contention to hire that administrative, clerical, and light industrial talent.
So for your clients, you're basically minimizing risk. I mean, you're bringing talent, but you're helping them minimize the risk of a hire.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our value proposition, why we're in business,
Yeah.
is when people are going to have litigation, is when you hire them or when you fire them.
Okay.
So we're the employer of record. So
Mm-hmm.
we're taking all that risk away from them.
Mm-hmm.
We are providing them all of that upfront background check and drug screen and interviewing. So
Yeah.
that really is time consuming.
Sure. Expensive.
Right. And there's a huge cost savings to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at somebody that we place and you might pay the person, I'll use round numbers, $20 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and our bill rate is, let's call it $30 an hour. You
Mm-hmm.
might think that $30 an hour is more expensive, but it's actually just the opposite. When you pay somebody $20 an hour with payroll taxes and benefits and everything, you're probably end up paying $31, $32 an hour.
Oh,
So it's counterintuitive, but we're actually either price neutral or we're saving that company a couple bucks an hour. But the
so
best part is really you're getting to try out
exactly.
Sally or Fred over a 4-month period just to make sure that they get along with your team. It's
And
it's
vice
all about culture.
And vice versa, because Sally may have thought this was a great opportunity and realized these guys are monsters.
Great point. You could be selling for us, Deb. It's an advantage to the candidate as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they are your employees until they are either the client's employees or neither of your employees.
Correct. So we ask our client to keep them on our payroll for 4 months.
Okay. Okay.
That's a perfect time to evaluate. It's
Yes.
not one day, it's
Yes.
not 5 years.
Yep.
4 months is a reasonable time to really look at somebody's work habits.
So let's talk about culture for a second, because you have a culture in your company, and I'd love to hear you talk about that. And then they are going on a daily basis, whether via Zoom or in person, to a different culture.
Yeah.
How does that work? What is your culture all about?
Yeah. So I'll back up a little bit, but I do a lot. I spend a day with all the people coming into the company, and
Oh,
we talk a little bit about culture and
cool.
hiring.
Yes.
And I say to the person, hey, you're coming here with experience. You've been in recruiting, you've been in hiring, you've got many, many years of experience, but we're going to put a little bit different spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
And how we do our hiring internally is very different, and it's really geared toward our culture. So I always ask people during training a little trick question, right? I said, hey, who wants to take a trick question? It's a little bit of a curveball.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will say, yeah, I'll take that curveball. And I'll say, all right, I'm going to describe the person to you. He or she is extremely polished, comes in a full suit, interviews extremely well, went to Harvard undergrad, and they got a Stanford MBA, and they've got a really good job history, and they have lots and lots of recruiting experience. Are they a good fit? And without a doubt, the person says, absolutely, hire that person on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, that's where the trick question comes in. Do they meet our culture?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So our culture is sense of urgency, teamwork, passion, collaboration, teamwork.
Yeah.
So if you don't meet those four
Right.
values, you won't do well here. So maybe that Harvard and Stanford grad is just miles ahead of everybody intellectually, but he moves at this, at the pace of molasses going uphill.
Right.
He or she won't work out because we're not an emergency room environment where it's life or death, but
Right.
we're right below that. We're getting people a job. It's urgent. Like
Right.
this is not anecdotal. This is real.
Yes.
We have a rule. We don't put anybody on hold for greater than 20 seconds.
Wow.
So, I mean, how many times have you called recently, Deb, your cable company, your healthcare provider, and you go into this endless, this interminable phone.
Right.
You call us, always a live person answers the telephone.
Yeah.
Somebody's not available. Hey, I'll see if so and so is going to be wrapped up their phone call in 20 seconds or fewer. If not, can I help you?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm getting off the topic here, but the point is if you don't have that sense of urgency, you won't do well here. Or teamwork
Mm-hmm.
is one of our values. And let's say that you have somebody that came from he or she was a great recruiter, but they were an individual contributor,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they didn't have to rely on the other person to do step 1 or step 7.
Yeah.
They won't work out here.
Right. They're Lone Ranger.
Lone Ranger Maverick ain't going to work here.
Okay.
So you have to meet our culture. So again, it's that sense of urgency and the teamwork and the passion. If you don't meet our criteria, no matter how smart, how hardworking you are, it won't mix with our culture. And that person, he or she will be swimming upstream their entire career here.
So, and how does that, in some ways, I want to ask, where does that come from? So was that something you didn't see at your prior firm that you identify, wow, big missing links, so you brought that forward? Is it something that was instilled in you by your parents? Everything was about doing the important things first and getting them done, checking them off
Yeah.
the list. Or where did that come from?
Well, it was neither of those.
Okay.
We put our hand on the stove and got burned. Uh, and most people learn after you put your hand on the hot stove to not do it.
Yes.
We put our hand on the hot stove about 17 times, kept on burning ourselves. And, Dave and I are a little stubborn or maybe thick skulled. It was after we were hiring great people, but they weren't working out.
Yes. Yes.
And we thought, boy, what is it? So talk to a great
Yeah.
HR consultant, and this is probably 12 years ago.
Hmm.
I said, what are you looking for in your candidates?
Yeah.
And we had completely incongruent answers. He wanted intelligence and I wanted professional. So we just wanted different things.
Yes.
So she kind of identified, you don't even have a defined culture, do you? I said, well, we kind of do. People that kind of fit us, but to scale, you need to put that in writing. You need to make sure everybody understands it. You need to make sure it's part of your training. You need to make sure it's part of your interviewing process.
Yeah.
So we gear all our questions around our 4 values.
Yeah. And this whole business of 20 seconds, nobody's on hold for longer than 20 seconds. I mean, that's almost feels like an extreme statement of your culture.
Yeah, I know it.
I mean, I imagine you get more than one call a day.
Yeah, and when you go into our branches, 40 different brick and mortar locations,
Yeah.
I know when somebody's performing
Yes.
based on how much that phone is ringing, who's on the phone. Oh, yeah, tell her I'll call her back.
Yeah.
Give me 6 minutes. Let me take care of this. And you're seeing people, juggle all sorts of plates in the back room. That's how I know somebody's, the office is humming.
So that's quite I think a great challenge, but that's quite a challenge for your, level 2, your management team, because they need to execute this urgency every single day in every way, because my understanding is that everything speaks and people are watching, how real is this really? So they're the ones more at some level on the front line.
Yeah, you're right. So some of the things that you're asking me, or some of the things that you're pointing out to me, I'm just kind of realizing for the first time. Yeah, like you're pointing out some interesting observations. But yeah, you're right. I think about we have somebody by the name of Carmen, and he's terrific.
Yeah.
But he's kind of that ringleader and trying to keep all these acts up at the same time. You're right, and and he's got to go out and hunt the business down, but then make sure that all the people are holding up their jobs back and on the home front.
Because it's like you see people sometimes, and they're so worn. Like at the end of the day, they're weary, or they come in Monday morning, it's like, oh, here comes the week, oh, I can't wait till Friday. There's that. And then it seems like there's a different group of people who just like, they're ready for it and they're energized by it. So I'm guessing I know which type of people you're looking for.
There's another example of you bringing up something that I haven't thought about in years, but here is always our theory. Nobody, and you're right, there's definitely, chocolate and vanilla out there. People that like different things. But I think universally, nobody truly enjoys going home at the end of the day going, yeah, this was a really easy day. I didn't accomplish anything. Like they were able to take a nap in the middle of the day. Some of those people I think everybody universally feels good at the end of the day on a Saturday. Hey, what'd you do this weekend? Well, I cleaned my entire house. I got this done. I got that done. Yeah. Saturday night, you go to bed early and you feel great about yourself. You feel accomplished. Yeah, those are the people that we want. Yeah. And that's how we feel that they feel at the end of the day. And, this is a biased opinion, but I don't think there's many feelings that are better in business than getting Sally her job.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and she calls you and says, man, I'm at XYZ company. and it's great. And I owe that to you, Fred, for that introduction.
Yeah.
That makes up for the 99, non-great calls because it's challenging business, but that makes it all worthwhile.
And so I'm curious as to what got you into this line of work in the first place.
So my mom is down for Boston this weekend, and we got to talking about that exact experience. So my dad worked at a company called Digital Equipment, which was a huge employer back in the 70s and 80s in New England. And she was asking me about a job that I did in college. And I said, yeah, you remember I worked at Digital's, one of their warehouses or shipping plants. And she said, oh, yeah, I kind of remember that job. How did you get in there? Did dad, pull some strings? I said, no, I went through TAC Worldwide, which was a huge staffing company back in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
And she said, is that what inspired you to get in your business? And I said, yeah, kind of. I remember this office. This only happened 1990. So this was only 34 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And I still remember it distinctly that this guy, I don't remember his name, but I remember what he looked like. And I just remember him kind of being a wheeler dealer. Like,
Yeah.
all right, Ryan, hang on a second. Let me see if I can make 2 phone calls for you. And I'm sitting here in his chair. He's picking up the phone. He's calling, hey, do you need somebody?
Yeah.
I mean, this is before emails, probably 1989, 1990-ish.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of wheeling and dealing like your old time sports agent, kind of Jerry Maguire. And I said, yeah. And I always thought about that guy and how cool of a job that would be. I didn't have that opportunity, and I went into pharmaceutical sales right out of college, but I always kind of came back to that. And so in a circuitous way, yeah, he was kind of my inspiration.
Definitely see that in you, because the energy and the passion, and there's sort of a mental clarity when you are involved in action like that. You have to have a driving focus and mental clarity to like stay with your own program, right? And the power of helping someone, I think, is enormous. I mean, we talk about power as if it's a bad thing. Powerful people, doing bad things is mostly what you hear about. But this power to help, and the power to pick up the phone or send an email or do some wheeling and dealing and help someone get a job, it seems enormous.
It really is. And I'm not saying that I do believe this. All work is noble.
Yes.
No matter what you're doing to put food on the table, some people have these high level jobs and some people have these entry level jobs. And, that's what makes the world go round. However, I do feel like what we're doing, and this might sound a little bit cheesy here, but I think it's a real service to the community in which we work. We started in King of Prussia, which is I would say a working class neighborhood of Philadelphia, Norristown, Plymouth Meeting, Conshohocken. These are all the towns around that are pretty working class, a lot of entry level people. And you know what? The entry level people that are getting right out of high school or college, those are the ones that need the help the most.
Yes.
So we could have gone into executive recruiter and place all 6-figure people that all have college degrees, maybe master's degrees, sit in big offices. And I'm not saying that that's not helpful and that's not a service, but those are the people that don't really need you. If we weren't around, these are adept people that could have gotten jobs on their own. We're helping the people that need the most help.
Yeah.
And, everything that we do for the candidate is free, not only getting them the job,
Yeah.
but we'll write your resume for free. If you're not great in Excel, we'll give you the tutorials for free and work with you. The interview prep, the coaching, the orientation, all of that is a free service. So we'll take somebody, I hate to commoditize somebody, but we'll take a piece of clay that really doesn't have any idea which way they're going, and we'll do a psychological evaluation to find out what kind of environment that they would be best at. So we do a lot of things we feel for the community.
Yeah. And so you're sort of giving people an opportunity to learn some very important business skills and life skills. I mean, being able to operate within a spreadsheet, being able to write, and having also a sense of what kind of culture and environment you're best for will set you up for success, because you go continuously into the wrong environments. Hope can turn hopeless pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a good point. One of the things we try to remind our recruiters, because these are things like we take for granted every day. Your car started right up, right?
Yes.
And it has 365 days in a row. You take it for granted, right? I mean, that's just human nature. So
Right.
what we try to remind our managers, try to remind our recruiters is that every single person walking in the door has got pain.
Hmm.
Like we've all known what it's like to look for a job or lose a job or not have a job. There's some serious pain that you have.
Yeah.
So trying to assuage his or her concerns and fears when they come in and really kind of put somebody at ease, that's a skill.
Hmm.
And being able to say, hey, I'm going to help you. If you don't know this, oh my God, you're not a guru in Excel. Oh my God, that's shameful.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. We're going to take you through the process. I'm going to take you through novice, then intermediary. You got to do the work, but these are tutorials that we will give you for free, interviewing guides and tips on how to interview. And we, back in the days, we don't do this anymore, but we used to say to candidates, hey, after you're done your interview in King of Prussia,
Hmm.
you're interviewing on the other side of King of Prussia, 2.7 miles away.
Yeah.
Instead of calling me and telling me how the interview went, why don't you just stop by and you know what? We'll put you right up front at the computer here and you can write your thank you letter right from here. You can log on to your, I'm going to date myself. You can log on to your AOL or to your Yahoo account and send your thank you letter. And this is how hands on we were. Hey, do you mind if I just peruse that thank you letter before you send it to her? And we'd look that over. But, one of the key differentiators that we have, every temp agency makes their burger the same way. And
Right.
but we actually meet. And when I worked for Randstad, you're either sending your candidate after you've met them once or sight unseen.
Hmm.
It's A or B. We're the only staffing company out there. Staffing service is what we like to call ourselves. We're the only company out there to meet with our candidates in person 3 separate times.
Gosh. Mm.
So, and some candidates, I mean, it's a very positive thing because our quality control and our relationship and rapport is all better. But on the other side of the continuum, some people say, "Yeah, I've been in the working world for 25 years.
Yeah.
I don't need 3 different touch points.
Yeah.
I want to get a job. I want to get it quickly." And you're a means to an end
Right.
as a staffing company, and we understand people feel that way. You're not going to come through. We can't represent you unless we put eyes on you 3 different times.
Yeah, that's great. And also if they are that way, hey, I've been in business 25 years, that tells you something. I don't need this. That tells you something else about them.
Coachability, right, Deb?
Right.
Yeah. At 25 years, I know everything there is to know. I don't need to. Yeah, you're right. That assesses their coachability.
Right. You built this business. You certainly have purpose. You understand who you serve and how you serve both client as well as the employees that you bring in. I mean, both are crucial stakeholders for you. And you have this passion that fuels this sense of urgency and a persistence, because this is like every 20 seconds I'm imagining the bell is ringing. Every 20 seconds something is happening, your organization. So there's the ability to be persistent day in and day out, and there's no respite from it. I mean, you take vacation hopefully and stuff like that, but you're either going to be a leader and a CEO that just thrives. I mean, you hear of CEO, what's that terminology? It's like CEOs after so many years sometimes just get tired. It's like you get worn down. And then what they do, how they rejuvenate themselves. But it sounds like you just have this passion and persistence that is just sustained over 19, 20 years. I mean, that's an endurance run.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the terminology that you used, and persistent is a perceived as a positive word, right?
Yes.
I'm going to use a different P word, a little bit of a pejorative P word, and that's paranoid. I feel like
Yeah.
being driven. Maybe it's the Irish Catholic guilt that I grew up with, but I feel like, and this might again be a little bit cheesy, but I feel like I owe it to the people that join PeopleShare to
Mhm.
bring it every single day. I feel like we're running out of money. We're not, but I feel like, hey, if we don't keep on driving and keep on going up, like if you're treading water,
Yes.
you're losing ground, right? And I just feel like unless we keep on driving and growing, I'm not giving an opportunity to the people that I asked, that our company asked to come here. It's unhealthy paranoia. Like I get into the office not because I'm like, boy, I want to do a great job. I feel like, man, if I don't help out and lift this box or, help
Right.
grab onto this dresser to help somebody move it in, like I feel like I'm letting people down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, paranoia is probably what drives me more. And that's not the best way to be, but, I guess everybody different strokes, right?
And so I'd add another P, two words, you feel personal responsibility for your team and for the growth of the company.
Oh, no question about it.
Yeah.
And when I look at our company, if we didn't have a stellar year, I look at myself and be like, well, what
Yeah.
did I do? Did I not hire the right people? Did we not motivate them? Why do we, have to terminate this person? Why do we lose her?
Right.
No question. Yeah, it's personal. Yeah, that's the first rule of sales is don't take it personally.
Yes.
I take everything personally. I have a list in my head of all the people that didn't buy or didn't, and I took it personally. Yeah, I beat myself up at the end of the day if I didn't, drive, get appointments or fill that role.
So I think that many CEOs, and that's who our audience is here, would probably like that bottled for them, that energy drink, that fuel, for the next drive. I mean, you're an extraordinarily successful CEO,
Thank you.
but there's something else in there in terms of your caring and your determination and all the things that we read about, and great books talk about all these kind of things, but it's a whole different thing to read it than be in the presence of someone who is just living this kind of leadership. And so I thank you for being here today, and I wonder if you have any, because I know sooner or later we have to have an end time. I can't keep you the whole day, but if you have any just words of wisdom for another CEO who just might feel a little worn down and need a word or some type of encouragement to just take up the mantle and just get out there and keep driving.
I would say that that phrase, it's lonely at the top, is so true. And sometimes you can't confide in a subordinate, and you want to have that level of professionalism. Man, I've gotten so much, not from telling people my problems and then helping them solve. And that's, I guess, what a consultant's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But just being in those peer groups and hearing what they're going through and just surrounding yourself. And like, if there's one thing that I've learned over the last 19 years, it's the power of collaboration.
Yes.
Like cleaning, the worst job around your house, cleaning the gutters,
Yeah.
right? A horrible job. It can be fun if you got, two contemporaries or friends to do it with you, and you'd make a day out of it. So I think business is tough, and it's very tough to do business in 2024. Either getting a coach or being part of a peer group like a Vistage, the deal maker, Philadelphia deal makers that we're going to. You know why I love going to that? I just love hearing other people's stories. I don't want to tell my stories and have them fix it, but I like just hearing other people and just trying to learn from people just by hearing what they're going through. And that's what rejuvenates me. And as a CEO, you probably, unless you're this tech genius, you're probably going to get most of your inspiration from the people side of it.
So what you're saying basically is that yes, it's lonely at the top, but it doesn't really have to be.
Exactly. So join a peer group, get a coach. And, this is factual because I actually met this gentleman who's a Canadian, but he said, back when Wayne Gretzky was starting his career, I was his coach. And I said, I didn't know you were a hockey guy. He says, I've never been on skates in my life. But I was coaching Wayne Gretzky on all of his off ice. And this is somebody at the top of their game in every aspect. But
Yes.
he had a coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure Bill Gates probably has a coach.
And that is the best advice and the perfect end note for this podcast
Yeah,
episode. And I just thank you so much for being here with me. And I look forward to seeing you in basically a couple weeks at the Philadelphia Dealmakers Conference.
it's going to be great. Hey, thanks. This has been a lot of fun.
Good.
Be sure to subscribe in all your favorite podcast apps. Just look for Success Beneath the Surface. Chief Outsiders, part-time growth executives with full-time results.